Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. Hopefully all were okay with me taking a couple of days off for the holidays. But I am back here for 2019 again. And today I'm going to be going over what in my opinion are the easiest TFOs for earning the various marks for reputations inside the game. This is a little bit late as, Tier 6 reputations came out a few months ago, but, I thought that it was still appropriate enough to still talk about this eventually inside the game. But anyway, so here's my biases and stipulations going over this list. First and foremost, there should be marks or missions that require the least effort to gain those marks. And it requires very little or no participation from your allies to be able to still earn the marks themselves. My default is typically to have the difficulty of the missions at advanced because, well, first off, that's typically the highest level that most players in the game will actually ever go. Playing elite for the most part isn't really worthwhile for most players inside the game. And also, it's at the advanced difficulty that you're able to earn elite marks from the actual missions themselves. So that's what I'm going to be using as a basis for this video. There will be a few select missions that I will say that elite can be better and can be still relatively easy to manage and still to do it at the higher difficulty. But when those missions come around, I will be talking about those specifically inside this video. Anyway, feel free to see the description for time links in the video. There also will be a slide at the very end of a TLDW of the very basic list of all the different reputations and the specific mission that I highly recommend for them. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start off, here's my current plan for the channel for 2019, at least the first few months of 2019, is that I'm going to be trying to put out 3 videos a week. That probably won't always happen, but at least for the first little while, that's definitely what is going to be happening. I do have some different things going on economically with a future job that I'm working out that could change things drastically, but at least for now, this is the plan. And that's going to be trying to put out videos 3 days a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays instead of my Thursdays and Sundays that I've been doing previously for the past few months. On Tuesdays, other than today, I'll be going over Star Trek Online lore. There's a list of various cool things I'll be going over. I'm going to try my best to not have very many stuff on the road to 2409 because that's pretty boring, to be honest. I'll be diving a lot more of my videos will be going over off the lore from a lot of the writing from Cryptic's website. I've been making a really in-depth Google Spreadsheets list with links for all those things on Cryptic's website. That's a note for y'all to check out. I'm also going to go over, after going through some of that, I'll be going over the canon Star Trek Online captains and their stories, and also which Star Trek Online captains play what missions inside of the general stories inside the game. I'll also go over some predictions for future plots and stories once I've covered all of this stuff, and then I'll also periodically cover a couple of specific Star Trek Online characters as they are requested by you all. For Thursdays, it's going to be a lot of the similar things that I've at least been covering over the past few months with Star Trek Online mechanics and builds, as well as various starship comparisons videos periodically as new starships are released. For some reason on this channel, this particular category itself, Star Trek comparisons, has been the most successful in terms of views and watch time in total, so I will continue to do that in the upcoming months. For Saturdays, it's going to be kind of like free-for-all generalist thing about Star Trek. It could be general discussions about general things in Star Trek, like Star Trek Discovery, different gaming discussions and things like Star Trek Online fair in terms of how the game presents its mechanics, and then any other general issues that are coming up inside the general community at large in relation to Star Trek Online or other Star Trek gaming. Yeah, that's basically it for this channel of what's going to be going on in the next couple months. If there's something else that you feel that you think should be warranting of a day of the week instead of something in here, feel free to let me know. I feel fairly strongly that the Star Trek Online lore needs to be covered. That's why I'm devoting a day a week to that. And I'm still going to be covering something in Star Trek Online because that was the basis for this channel in the first place. I'm not just going to give that up really easily. So yeah, let's go ahead again and start into the reputations now themselves. So the first one here is Task Force Omega. This is the most popular one of all of them inside the game right now. And I think that's mainly because a lot of your DPS runs for space involve Task Force Omega missions, so I guess that makes sense. In terms of the ones that I recommend for y'all, my #1 recommendation is Infected the Conduit. because it is the quickest Omega TFO in the game right now. It's also semi-popular for some of your DPS chasers in the game. However, you can't get into the highest levels of the DPS leagues right now unless you play Hive Onslaught Elite. So that's kind of the default TFO for space now. But ISA is still a decent mission as well. This is one that doesn't have a fail mechanic. Most of the Borg missions in space now have been adjusted to have a fail mechanic on advanced. So that is something to think about. That's why I recommend these two ones, because they don't have those fail mechanics in their missions themselves. There's a couple little parts. You have a little group that you fight at the very beginning, then you destroy 2 transformers, destroy the transfer conduit, and destroy the tactical cube, and you complete the mission. It's really simple and straightforward. If you're in a DPS chasing group, you could finish this in under 3 minutes. So the honorable mention obviously goes to Borg Disconnected. It's the easiest Omega Marks mission in the game because it's just a couple of waves. They're all timed. Besides the very last one, you could end a little bit earlier if you finish off all 3 of the capital ships before the end of the timer. You're able to get 4 different types of reputation marks from this. The reason why I have this as an honorable mention instead of the main one is just because the elite marks option for this TFO, the rules for it have changed a lot from patch to patch. When they initially allowed a lot of the reputation marks with this thing, it was whatever reputation mark that you selected, that was the elite mark that you would get if you played it on advanced or on elite. Recently they've changed that, and I've been going back and forth between whether they were allowing the elite mark of only Delta reputation or they were allowing it for all 4. Because for my recommendations, I'm saying an advanced mission for that mission that gives you an elite mark if that elite mark is available for that reputation. That's why this is just an honorable mention instead of the main one for this reputation. They're both still good and easy missions, though. Our next one is Nukara Strikeforce with Nukara marks, obviously. This is one of the reputations that doesn't have an elite mark, so it just comes to gathering the marks themselves. The easiest one by far is Crystalline Catastrophe. This is the only mission in this list that I'm recommending that actually uses 10 people in its queue system. However, because of how ridiculously quick this entity gets destroyed and the amount of marks that you get off of it for destroying it on advanced, people still will queue up for this mission very quickly. Typically, even on the holidays, I just tried this out a couple hours ago, I was able to queue up for this in under a minute on New Year's Eve. So, I mean, this mission is really easy to run. You're able to get a lot of people. Sure, if you have a really little DPS group, you might die once or twice, but in under probably 4 or 5 minutes, this thing's gonna be destroyed. If you have a really good DPS group with you, easily in under a minute, this guy can be destroyed. The honorable mention goes to Azure Nebula Rescue. Good things about this mission is that it's just a timed to win. It's available at level 20 instead of level 50 that this guy is, and it contains marks for both Nukara and Romulus reps. Unfortunately, the bonus marks that you get from this mission don't give you that many additional marks, unfortunately. It's a very long mission and not for marks in general, and of course this reputation doesn't have elite marks with it, so the long time for complete this mission isn't necessarily the most enjoyable thing. Our next reputation is the new Romulus Reputation. One of the weird things about this reputation, might cover this later with unlocking species, but if you get this reputation to tier 5 reputation with any character, you actually unlock the Rh'Ihho species for free. You definitely can unlock the Rh'Ihho species with Zen from the C-Store, but you can also just earn that species as well from getting your new Romulus reputation to tier 5 on any of your characters on your account. Just something to know. My recommendation is defend Rh'Ihho Station. This is the quickest ground TFO in the entire game, and this is also one of the 2 TFOs that I can actually recommend you to go on Elite for. Assuming that you've played the TFO before on Advanced and have Mark 12 stuff for everything, you can play this on Elite with 2 competent captains with you in your group, and still successfully complete this mission on elite difficulty. There are 3 phases: destroying some devices, rescuing some engineers, and then stopping the launch sabotage of the, I think it's the warp core. I don't know. It's someone, one of you will probably correct me in the comments for this. But it's 3 easy phases. It's not really that hard. The honorable mention is Vault Ensnared. This is one of the ones that I see a whole lot from a lot of people when I do random TFOs, of them trying to earn Romulan marks, because the Nukara ones you'll do Crystalline Catastrophe. It's way below level 20. You can do Nukara and Romulus reps with this. It's honestly, you don't get a ton of marks from this mission. It's better than Azuri Nebula Rescue, but still not that great. And you can also fail this on advanced difficulty. So you gotta be careful. You actually have to make sure that you understand how this mission works. Otherwise, you could fail this mission if you're with people that also don't know how the mission works either. Just something to think about for you all. Our next reputation is Dyson Joint Command with Dyson marks. This one came out roughly around the time when I started the game, like a month or 2 after. This Storming the Spire is the quickest Dyson TFO. It gives you the largest marks for your time, and it's basically a time TFO after you finish the first phase. There's 3 general phases for this thing. The other 2 Dyson TFOs take a very long time to do. So, and especially with the random TFO system nowadays, it's not exceptionally hard to get Storming the Spire up and running. Maybe a couple minutes of people also logging in the random TFO, and because you're able to, if you're using a random TFO, you get valuable marks outside of just the Dyson ones from this mission. It's not super bad. The honorable mention is going to be the Breach mission on Advanced. And the stipulation is if you're doing the event version of the Breach mission. If you do the event version, it's a little bit shorter. You get a lot more marks for it. If you do Advanced, you still get the special elite mark with this reputation, and you get a choice of marks for that larger amount of mark pool. It's also why, in my opinion, if you're trying to get a lot of the Dyson sets, it's highly recommended to run the Breach event mission on Advanced when that event is going, because a lot of people will be queuing up for that event, and you get a lot of marks for it too. If it's not the event, it's not a lot of marks. It's one of the longest queues in the entire game. Well, like the actual running of the action mission itself, it takes a long time. So it's definitely one of the downers for it. It's definitely, like, if you've never played it before, it's definitely fun to play once. Definitely fun to play once or a couple times. After that, it just becomes long and arduous, honestly. At least for me personally, someone who's played most of these missions a lot. But anyway, our next one is the Undine Reputation, A472 Counter Command. And so yeah, inside of this one, because I'm a biased tank captain, I personally prefer Undine Assault Advanced. It is definitely one of the slightly longer missions in the game, but it gives you one of the best mark per minute values out of the game. The only one that's better from a fleet mark standpoint is Crystalline Catastrophe on Advanced. Outside of that mission, this one's basically the best one for mark per minute of all the TFOs inside the game. You can earn over 300 marks without any bonuses whatsoever on your your character, like just from the actual mission itself. Like if you ran the mission, wait 30 minutes, ran it again, if you had a coordinated 5-man team or 5-woman team, whatever, you can earn over 300 marks from this mission. So unfortunately, you only earn fleet and Undine marks from the mission, but it's still a lot of marks. Basically, there's 3 lanes with 2 rifts in each lane. There's a starship in each lane that can open the rifts and make them vulnerable, so you can actually destroy the rifts or close the rifts. If those starships are destroyed, then you have to wait for a new one to spawn and go down the lane again. So being able to protect those starships is really important, which is why a 5-tank pre-made, it actually works exceptionally well on this map, because you could actually have one tank in each lane by themselves, and then you can have two other ships, whether they're tanks or not, just wandering around doing the optional errant rifts that are going on throughout the map, and then going towards whatever lane that happens to have the undeemed dreadnought that spawns. Then you have 3 ships destroying that dreadnought, and then all of the lanes are just progressing fairly easily down the lanes. And then there's a big ship destroy at the end. It's really easy to do that, honestly. So this is actually a really nice mission inside the game. You do need a bit of time to do it. If you're a little bit time constrained, Vicious Cycle is a nice alternative. It's a little bit quicker, obviously a lot less marks for it. And this is one that I see a lot in the random TFOs. Back in the olden days, I really liked to play Undeemed Infiltration on Advanced, or when I was playing with one of my old fleets back in the day, I used to play it on Elite, because we all knew the map super well, so we knew all of the questions and things for the different Undeemed Infiltrators, and to know really quickly which ones were spies and which ones weren't. And we could complete this in like under 8 minutes, and it was really nice. Because of a lot of the bugs that have come up with Victory's Life and Age of Discovery, with this particular mission, there's a good chance that you're going to encounter a weird bug that'll make this mission unable to be completed. So this is why I don't recommend this mission that much anymore. However, if you happen to be someone who happens to be super lucky and avoid all the bugs in STO, this mission is not a bad one to do either. So there's just some options for you. Our next reputation is Delta Alliance with Delta Marks. So yeah, going into this, there's actually only 2 TFOs in this reputation. There's Bug Hunt and there's Borg Disconnected. Because there's only 2, it's why Borg Disconnected has almost default now of the elite marks of this mission. No matter what marks that you choose for it, that the elite mark is going to be for the Delta Alliance reputation itself. However, the one that gives you a little bit more marks for your time, if you have a decent group, is going to be Bug Hunt. This is one of the popular ground DPS chaser maps inside the game. So especially if you're playing Bug Hunt Elite with a lot of your DPS chaser friends, this one gives you a lot of marks for your time too. It does have a few fail mechanics. On Elite difficulty, you have to take out all 3 alarm bugs, otherwise you lose. And also on Advanced and on Elite, you have to kill the spawn mother at the end of the map before your explosive expert dies, because otherwise you completely fail. So there are those 2 stipulations, but other than that, it's a fun map. If you aren't properly equipped for ground combat, you're going to die a bunch in this mission. But it is a decently fun, straightforward map of just destroying a bunch of enemies and going towards the end. Borg Disconnected is one of those missions that I've said before. You've got a couple waves in the capital ship phase that, I mean, it's basically just a bunch of time maps that you're basically going through of little time phases of enemies that are spawning and trying to take out you, and you're trying to get some Borg to not be assimilated back into the collective. Alright, so with that all said, let's go to our next reputation, which is the Iconian Resistance. This is a fun one. I think that a lot of the maps in this one are actually pretty good. Of all the ground maps, though, on Elite difficulty, the easiest one is Brotherhood of the Sword. I've talked about this before in a previous video. It's the easiest Elite TFO in the game. If you have 2 decent players on the team, those 2 players can actually carry the entire team through the whole map. You just have to make sure that no one activates one of the Iconian techs before the Orion Syndicate is evacuated in Phase 3. Otherwise, you're probably going to lose the whole map. But outside of that, it's fairly easy to complete this whole mission. If a couple of you that have seen my little clip about this mission, whenever I ever play this mission on Elite, I will spam the chat right before Phase 2 and right as Phase 3 commences that I remind everyone, don't rescue the Orion Syndicate until after we've cleared the enemies off of Phase 3, just so that we can make sure that the Orion Syndicate is able to evacuate safely. But yeah, there's 4 different areas that you disable tech, and then there's a Herald Leader to defeat at the end. There is a time limit for all of these areas for disabling tech. You don't have to defeat all the enemies in the area before disabling the tech. As long as you just disable the tech, then you're able to progress to the next phase. On advanced difficulty, that's all you have to do. On elite difficulty, you have to do all the optional objectives in phase 2 and phase 3. After that, you have to defeat the Herald Leader, which doesn't have a time limit. So basically, for both these difficulties, the moment that you get to the Herald Leader phase, you know that you've already won the mission. And then it just might be a grind fest if none of you all can do a lot of DPS. The honorable mentions is Herald Sphere and Gateway to Grethor. I like Herald Sphere a tiny bit more just because it doesn't have fail mechanics. Gateway to Grethor actually does. And also you're able to get a lot of Starship Mastery experience off of the Herald Sphere TFO. Which for those of you that are wondering like where to go to grind for Starship Mastery, this is the TFO to grind for Starship Mastery. If you're wanting a actual mission to grind Starship Mastery, go to the mission called Ragnarok. It's at the end of the Temporal arc. And just play the first part of it until you beam over to the Enterprise J. Then you can beam out of the mission, drop the mission, restart the mission, right in that battle, and you can easily get your tier 5 mastery of basically any starship in under about 25 minutes. But yeah, anyway, for both these missions, they rely upon a little bit higher DPS, while for this ground mission, for almost all the phases besides phase 3, you can get through without really any DPS whatsoever, just focusing on the disabling of the tech in the areas. You can actually complete the mission just fine. Yeah, that's it for the Iconian Reputation. Now let's head on to the next one, which is Terran Task Force. Of this one, there's also not that many of the Terran ones available. Just these two guys, Counterpoint and Assault on Terran. Oh, do not play this one unless you have a coordinated team. There's a stipulations behind it. Ideally, if you're going to play this on the ground, especially on Elite, you need 2 engineers. You need a coordinated team solving the puzzle and some healers to keep your team alive during that one. And then you have to need coordination to make, I forgot her name now, but the boss at the end actually vulnerable to actually be damaged, or just attacking her a couple times with that one little thing. Anyway, for Counterpoint though, outside of the first phase, it's basically all just time limit stuff. And unless you play this on Elite, you don't have fail mechanics at all inside this mission at all. It's basically just getting through the phases, and then you win. You don't actually even need to actually defeat any enemies after phase 1 to be able to complete the mission. So, especially for all that are like really new to the game, this is one that you can still play to get some marks and your elite mark for the rep for each time that you play this. It's a pretty decent map. As was commented in one of my previous videos, this is actually a decent map as well if you're wanting to test being a tank. Like oftentimes what I would do on Counterpoint as a tank is I would tell my team, by the way, I can defend DS9 by myself. The 4 of you all just worry about transporting the security teams in phase 3 over to the Terran. And that's what I would do. Defend against the entire enemy fleet just by myself. And as I'm a tank player, I can do that just fine. Make sure that DS9 takes almost no damage during that whole thing too. Yeah, that's basically it for this. Play Counterpoint. Don't play Assault on Terran. This is one of the dreaded maps that I do not like seeing whenever I play random TFOs, just because this map takes a long time, and if the team doesn't listen to me at all in the final phase, there's really no way to finish the final phase, because it takes 2 people to finish the final phase. Alright, so the next one is Temporal Defense Initiative, with Temporal marks. There are 3 different TFOs available for this. The one with the Doomsday Machines is extremely annoying. I don't like playing that one personally. I recommend playing one of the other 2 ones instead. If you have a decent ground build, Minor Instabilities is a tiny bit better. It can be completed a lot quicker than Battle Procyon 5, depending upon your group and stuff. Because there's a lot of wait times at Battle Procyon 5. Minor abilities can be completed in roughly the same amount of time too. Battle Procyon 5, though, for most people, is going to be a bit easier because it is a space mission, and most people that play Star Trek Online focus much more on space than they do on ground. Temporal missions are one of the harder missions for budget and built-in STO, so you're in whatever mission you play for this, expect to die a lot. This is also one of the reputations that a lot of people will used to use like the red alerts for, because they didn't want to play these longer missions in the game. In either of these cases, if you have a high DPS group, the missions can be done super quick. Otherwise, it'll take a little while. For Battle Procyon 5, you have 3 phases of closing the rifts, and then in the 3rd phase, you also have to destroy the Anoraks. If you play this on Elite, you have to close all of the all 3 phases with the closing rifts during the time limit, and also making sure that the Enterprise J doesn't ever fall below a certain health threshold. Otherwise, you will lose. So, it basically just takes a lot of DPS in order to make sure that you finish this mission in time. Our next reputation is the Lukari Restoration Initiative. This, at least according to the level limits to be able to play certain TFOs in the game, Star Trek Online considers the Lukari missions the hardest ones in the game, actually, because these are the only missions that you have to be level 60 to play. Most other missions are either level 20 or level 50. These ones you have to be at least level 60 to actually play, so just keep that in mind. And it's also because these are missions that you can't just DPS through them to win. It actually takes a little bit more thought to actually do it. The 2 ones I'm putting here is Draenor Gauntlet and Gravity Kills, just because these are the 2 missions that you can actually encounter in random TFOs or have queued up in the random TFO system itself. Draenor Gauntlet is obviously way better just because if your team is complete garbage, you will still complete the mission. All you have to do is complete the 1st phase, and then it's just after a certain amount of time playing this mission, the mission ends. So, I mean, you have a single assault group in phase 1, and then it's 2 assault groups in phase 2, and then it's 3 assault groups in phase 3. So the assault group finding the middle satellite, and then it's 2 assault groups finding the 2 end satellites, and then it's 3 assault groups fighting all 3 of them. If you completely fail all of the objectives in this, you'll still finish the mission. If you're playing this on advanced, even if you get like almost no marks, it'll still give you a Lukari micro container. So you still could do like a random TFO or another mission that gives you a choice of marks to get a lot more Lukari marks that way. Especially if you're trying to get a lot of equipment, spamming Draenor Gauntlet a lot can give you a lot of Lukari micro containers fairly easily. Gravity Kills is an honorable mention. I don't recommend playing this one unless you have a few tanks inside of your group, just because this is most easy to complete if either you have escorts in your group that are fairly durable, or you have tanks in your group that are smart enough to use engines as their primary energy and like shields as their second, and just flying around and getting a lot of the particles to fuel up your main starship to take out the Zenkethi bases. A lot of times when I've played this mission through the random TFO system, a lot of times I end up being the only person collecting particles, just because no one else can last long enough to get the particles and get back to the capital ship. So it's fairly painful to play and to watch, trying to explain to people what's going on and why they would use different mechanics for this mission. It is pretty painful to watch it all go down. And then whenever you get to the final phase, if it's people who are built around DPS, then it's super easy from there, but getting to that point is pretty painful. Alright, so our next reputation is competitive Wargames. Unfortunately in this one, this is one where I don't actually have a good suggestion for you, just because I haven't actually been able to play competitive Wargames in a long time. I mean, when competitive Wargames came out, I played a lot of all 3 of these maps: Binary Surrogate, Core Assault, and Twin Tribulations. However, since the later reputations came out, I haven't personally been able to get into these reputation queues and have them queue up through the normal queuing system. Because all three of them require 10 people in order to run, you can't use the random TFO system to get these going either. I really wish Cryptic just changed at least one or two of these to go down to like a 3v3 instead of 5v5, so that with 6 people it actually would be manageable to have them be put in the random TFO system. But yeah, because of that, I can't really tell you what to recommend to try to queue up for these. It's a little bit easier, and like what I did for my new Discovery Captain, I literally just used random TFOs and the event TFOs just to get all the marks that I needed to get my competitive Wargames reputation up to tier 6. And that's what I recommend for you all. I mean, if you have to be part of a really good fleet that has lots of people on constantly, you could easily make your own private group of 10 and queue up a bunch of the competitive Wargames TFOs yourself to run them too. They definitely are fun, and they can definitely teach you a little bit in a more casual setting how PvP works. And so you can be able to try some of those things out generally to be able to get a little bit of a taste of how that sphere works. Keep in mind though, real competitive PvP is a pay-to-win system, so just keep that in mind. Our next to last one in here is Gamma Task Force with Gamma Marks. We only have one TFO for this right now, so that's the one that I'm recommending. Swarm is actually a really easy TFO inside the game. They adjusted this slightly so that it would take you a tiny bit more time to complete, but it's not too bad. You're able to almost constantly queue this thing up, which is nice, unless they changed that and I didn't realize. I don't know. I haven't looked in a little while. I've always just been using the random TFO system for most of my characters to get their marks. So it's obviously one of the easier TFOs inside the game. With the Age of Discovery, they changed to the phases to make you have to defeat the enemy ships at the end of the phase instead of just the queue ending, especially after phase 3. And they adjusted it so that you get a tiny bit of extra bonus marks with the optional objectives, but you still get a lot of base marks in general from this. If you're going for gamma marks, this is much better than trying to go through the gamma quadrant and playing a lot of those little missions there. This one's a bit better to get gamma marks, but of course, if you're just spamming this queue after queue, it's going to get boring after a while. But this is the best way to do it. You can also just do random TFOs or event TFOs or doing one of the few select missions that actually still gives you choice of marks inside the game. Our last reputation is our Age of Discovery reputation. Because this hasn't been officially announced in terms of what its real title is going to be and what's going to be in it, I can't actually tell you what its real name is. I haven't been able to find it in the forums or anything. Perhaps it's out there and I just haven't found it, but it's also possible that it just hasn't been officially announced yet. I'd imagine it's probably going to be called Discovery Marks. And we already know that eventually the Defense of Starbase 1 is going to have those marks attached to it. This is one of the easier missions in the entire game. It definitely gives you a basis of how it at least allows you to be able to try out all the different forms of playstyles inside the game. Even though a lot of people still debate with me and say that you should be playing DPS no matter what your playstyle is. Totally up to you on that. I mean, DPS is definitely a component in Star Trek Online. It doesn't need to be a huge emphasis for all playstyles inside the game, though. And there's just 2 phases to this. Defend the starbase for a few minutes, and then spend a few minutes trying to defend the force transports, and then after a little bit, just defeat the remaining enemy ships, and the mission ends. It is really simple and straightforward, which is why obviously it's a pretty good recommendation for a mission to run. It's just that it's a little bit boring versus a lot of the other missions inside the game. Here is the TLDW for all of the stuff that I've said in this video. Just going in the normal order that I did, besides competitive Wargames, which is by itself because I don't have a good recommendation for you. Yep, there's all the missions themselves. I did do a typo there. So outside of New Romulus, which is defend Rh'Ihho Station. Sorry that I messed that up there. There's always some sort of error inside of my videos. But yeah, outside of that, that's basically it. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Hopefully y'all enjoy this brand new year that we have in 2019. My plan, as I said towards the beginning of this video, is to try to get videos out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from now on, with those 3 different categories: STO lore, general STO mechanics, and like Star Trek comparisons, those types of things, STO builds, and then on Saturdays going through some general things for Star Trek and Star Trek gaming in general, and any other weird community things and arguments that are going on right now. Yeah, outside of that, that's basically it for what's going to be going on in the near future for this channel. Thank you all for watching, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.